Chicken farming is a bit tricky because it needs finance and ready finance. Because for them, there is no gambling that today I'll give greens when feeds are expensive. No, you must have cash to feed them from day one.
Last week, Seeds of Gold profiled Florence Banjirana, a qualified nurse who deserted the nursing profession to join farming. On her farm, Florence integrates crop farming, poultry and piggery farming, which was our focus last week. This week, Florence takes us through the challenges of poultry keeping, especially when you choose to invest in layers. But from persistence and hard work, you sooner or later reap from your sweat.
I began with 2 local chickens, which gave birth and multiplied to 80. Sold them off, and when I sold them off at once, I picked the morale to do better. I bought 500 broilers. I brought them here. They grew up, but market for broilers are basically for meat. The market was low. I made some kind of losses. Then I got advice from another farmer to rear layers. Then now I ventured in layers. I brought 1,000. They did well. Now I changed the supplier. I went to another supplier. All the 700 I bought almost died because he was a bit cheaper. My original supplier was a bit expensive. Was selling 1-day-old chicken at 4,500. Then the other one was selling at 3,200. It's a company. When I brought them, they didn't work out. They all died. The few remaining ones, I sold them. I changed it to another company, which was also a bit cheap. They also didn't do what I expected from them. What the first supplier chicken had done, then I went back to my first supplier, where I get them now.
Some of the requirements important to consider before starting up a layers farm include the structure. This should be comfortable enough and should have conducive environment for the laying hen. Enough capital to buy feeds, dewormers and vaccines on a regular basis. Good and safe lighting system, preferably electrical. Well-trained labor. They should know the basics in feeding, healthcare and egg production. A good brood supplier. Chicks should grow at the expected growth rate and a level of disease resistance. A trusted feed supplier and a constant water source. Once all this is well considered, death rates are easy to control and fewer losses may be encountered.
Usually we do the brooding ourselves here. I have in 2 boys. Every batch I bring, I train them to brood. Every batch I bring, I put in a new person in the brooder so that most of them should learn. In case the old ones go, the new ones can do the work. And we usually work hand in hand. Like when it's brooding time, I'm here at 7, I leave at 7 in the evening. Even the whole night I keep on calling, is there a fire? Are they fine? Any problem? Up to like a month. When it's a month, they've stabilized and they are all fine. From the brooder, we change them to a normal house at 2 months. These big houses. Then we do the mixing of feeds ourselves. Right from the brooder, we mix feeds ourselves. We do the vaccination. I do it myself from here, plus 2 other boys. I train 1 or 2 to give injections, to give vaccines. And I've always trained them on how to know that a bird is sick. When do you know that? So when they are entering into the house with food, I tell them, see how many chicks will remain behind. When others are rushing for food, find out how many are not coming. Then you tell me. So usually when they tell me today we put food, but as if they were not interested at the time of putting food, then I know there is a problem. Then I've also taught them to know the droppings. When there is any abnormality, I teach them the droppings that show that there is a disease in. So most of them have mastered and they usually report. Then for these ones which lay eggs, usually the production tells us if there is a problem or not. Because at least the time I've monitored, issues of safety are not here.
When it comes to feeding in poultry, it is advisable that a farmer mixes the feeds by themselves. This helps to know the right quantities and quality of feed given to the bird at every stage. The feeds mixed should be rich in vitamins, calcium, protein, carbohydrates, minerals, and all given a lot of water.
Starting from the brooder, for me on this farm, I don't use these feeds, the pellets and what. They are a bit expensive and not accessible. What I use, I buy fish. I buy crushed cottonseed, sunflower, maize bran, broken maize, and premix. Then we mix according to age. Each age has its own ratio. Like in the brooder, those young ones, we mix them their own ratio. Out of the brooder, we put them on layer. Grower's mash, it has its own ratio. Then the layers also on its own ratio. Like that. We get our feeds from, I buy my feeds from Masaka. We transport once in big quantities. It takes like a month or half a month. Then maize bran, I acquire it locally around here. This place they grow a lot of maize, so maize bran is readily available at any time.
When you are a big commercial poultry farmer like Florence, feeding over 4,000 birds may not come as easy. For the least, a farmer may need to spend between 200,000 to 400,000 shillings daily on feeding alone. These are for feeds you may need to make a proper mixture for the birds. Maize bran, fish, cottonseed, premix, and sunflower. Commercial layer farming needs a lot of attention and time dedicated to the project. With a good feeding schedule, a farmer needs to ensure a disease-free environment in addition to deworming and vaccination.
We put in greens to make yellow yolk. Our eggs are totally yellow from January to December, and all the 3,000 birds laying now, their eggs are yellow. We fetch greens to supplement, just in case we are giving less feeds, we put in. We usually put them in at 2, at 3 in the evening. They also need vaccination. We vaccinate. The most vaccination is done when they are young, in the brooder, and out of the brooder. From day 1 to 1 month, we vaccinate 5 times weekly. Then from there, we give them 2 weeks. We vaccinate against smallpox. We give them more 2 weeks. We vaccinate against typhoid. Then we do deworming at 8 weeks. Then from there we do routine. Like now we have mastered the diseases that disturb us. So routinely we have a schedule we follow. At the beginning of the month we are putting a dewormer. After a certain period we are putting prevention medicine for coccidiosis. And when it's like a dry season, dust is too much, they usually get cough. When it gets like cough, it's when we treat. But those other illnesses, we usually give prevention, which we have on schedule.
When we are going to the poultry section, still here we are going to concentrate on the whole housing structure. We look at the comfort of these birds, because normally we bring these birds when they are very young. They haven't developed enough for the wings, so they are still delicate. So we need to ensure that the floor is smooth. Most people, they normally use coffee husks in the house. We must ensure that the house is well ventilated, and the spacing, they should have enough space. And then we have different requirements in that house, like the feeders, then the temperature. Normally when the birds have just been brought, we are supposed to maintain a certain temperature. Because just like even a normal hen, when it has just hatched, it normally keeps its hens under because the temperature keeps on. Maybe if it is very cold, since it hasn't developed wings, so we normally ensure that we create an environment where there will be enough warmth. And what we normally do is we put maybe some people use sigris. You can put a sigiri or a charcoal sigiri, maybe 2 depending on how many they are. Then in that house you must ensure that the corners, the animals cannot go into the corners, like they should be in a curve. Then if the floor is well prepared, the coffee husks are ready. We have already the charcoal stove. We should have a light, because they have to feed during day and night. Then the drinkers in place and the feed in place. We normally do what they call vaccination. It's a routine for layers. First day we normally vaccinate them against Marex. It is an injection given given in the muscles, normally around the neck region. Then the first week you give Newcastle. Then the second week you give Bumboro. After Bumboro, you can give a Amarex boost there. Then you continue Newcastle and the IB. Then after like the 8th week you give fall typhoid. You give fall pox after that week, and then after completing the cycle, because we expect them to start laying at around 4 months if you have looked after them very well.
When all is followed well, the birds will start laying at 18 to 20 weeks. The amount of eggs laid and picked per day will depend on good health, age of the bird, good feeding, and a good serene environment.
From these 2000 batch, when they had just begun laying, I used to pick 56 trays, between 56 54. As they go on laying, growing older, it reduces. After like 4 months, it went to 50 trays. After like half a month, it dropped to around 49, 50. It keeps there.
Per day?
Yes. Then as they grow old, like now, in some days they pick up to 50. After some time they drop 48, 47, like that. I think as they age, some go to holiday. Like some of them spend days without laying, then regain and lay again. But for now, as they grow, You can't be certain that they make 50. Like when they have just begun, if it is like 56, it is 56 per day. It only adds on some eggs, 20, 10, 10, but it is 56, the full number. But as they age, some of them go into holiday. I think they don't lay for like 2 weeks or one, then they pick and lay like that. Or when you change feed slightly, and the supplier gives you fake feeds, they drop. Or when you don't deworm on time, they drop. When they are sick, they drop. Like when you are vaccinating or injecting them and you're disorganizing them, catching them and doing what? The following days, they get a bit stressed. They also drop. In a day, I think each one lays once. And usually they lay morning time. The most eggs are out morning time. When it comes to evening, there are very few that lay in the evening. And most of the feeds, we put them morning hours. These ones are sisters to the other, 1,200, making it 2,000. It's the batch I told you that makes 50 trays, 49 at this particular age. Though before they used to lay 56, 55, like that. But as they age, they drop. So they still have like 6 months of laying. I'll lay them off in December or November. They usually like, at night, they usually like sleeping up. That's why we put in this. And we hang on greens here.
Poultry farming to a farmer may not only be for egg production. To a well-prepared farmer, after collecting the eggs, there is still value even from the chicken droppings, which is a great source of manure and protein for other animals on the farm.
I have a coffee plantation, around 7 acres. I take all the manure, the droppings I get from here to the coffee. I put it in the banana plantation. And the rest of the land, when I'm planning to plant something somewhere, I just take and drop there. By the time I cultivate, I found when it has already decomposed. I use it in my own farms. Then also for pigs. We sieve dry, we add to maize bran to feed the pigs.
Still holding on to that thought of starting that poultry farm, Florence has the right piece of advice that you may need to consider on this journey.
Chicken farming is a bit tricky because it needs finance and ready finance. You must be having, of course, the buildings, the manpower, and cash at hand. Because for them, there is no gambling that today I'll give greens when feeds are expensive. No. You must have cash to feed them from day one up to the day when you'll get an egg to sell it, get money and feed it again. Actually, they are more expensive. So it requires someone to be ready. And they are time consuming. They need a lot of time, especially for the owner. You need a lot. Almost every day the owner, you must be there. Find out the challenges which are there, the sick birds, treatment, all of that.
And as experience has it, the beginning is always the hardest. So, brave yourself, face the fears, and go for the gold.